It's no secret that Pokemon was a major part of my childhood, and one dream that myself and pretty much everyone else had was to play Pokemon with other people. But in generations 4 and 5 and even older games, you couldn't really do that. Sure, you could battle online in these newer games, but that's all you could do. But what if you wanted a little more? Well, that's where Pokemon MMORPGs came into play. There were a ton of Pokemon Flash Player massive multiplayer online games where you could play Pokemon with multiple other people. Most of these used custom maps and stories, but utilized Pokemon graphics, characters, and ideas. As the internet has become more connected, the Pokemon company shuts these down pretty much as soon as they can find them. But back in the day, they weren't so worried. So I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite Pokemon MMOs as a kid, which lasted for 5 years, Pokemon Omega. There's very little documentation of the game online, even on YouTube, so a lot of this is coming from memory from over 10 years ago. Some of it might be misremembering through my child mind's lens, so if you played Pokemon Omega and I'm wrong, please leave a comment. With development starting in 2009 by only 3 people, Pokemon Omega was not only a solid game, but kept up to date on new Pokemon, having events, and updating the map to add new locations. The devs did their best to make sure that Omega was a modern Pokemon experience. In the game, you can walk around the map using a character sprite of your choice from the Pokemon series and interact with other people or go out and find wild Pokemon. I don't really need to explain the premise of Pokemon for you, so I'll avoid doing that and just focus on what the game provided and what it did differently from a standard mainline Pokemon game. The overworld showed everyone on the map at the time, allowing you to watch them move and interact by clicking on their character. You could see their profile, challenge them to a battle, or offer to trade. Of course, like every Pokemon game, you could also fight NPCs on different routes. The game's statistics were based off a leaderboard system, which you could use to boost up your ranking based on the Pokemon you collected, overall level of said Pokemon, and battles won. Many people seeked out legendary Pokemon and of course shiny Pokemon to raise up and boost their ranking. Shiny Pokemon were very different in this game than any other mainline Pokemon game in that they were much easier to find. I remember I had collected a few boxes of only shiny Caterpie because they were everywhere. And of course, finding shinies of rarer Pokemon like legendaries and starters was pretty hard to do. So that's where you could either trade or you could purchase. You could spend a few dollars to buy a starter or a legendary from the site, which many did, but as a kid, I never got the chance to do that. Instead, I opted to trade with people. I remember there's a player named something like Vaporize who gave me a shiny Blastoise, which was level 100, and that was one of the best days of my life at the time. RetroDan here, and I just wanted to say that while editing the video, in this random guy's friend list, in one of the few videos of Omega on YouTube, it actually has the dude that gave me the shiny Blastoise in his friend list, so that was pretty cool to see. So back to your regularly scheduled video. Having a shiny starter on my team really made me focus on using Blastoise and led to my rank boost after winning battles. The game also had swarms which appeared randomly, where a route would have an abundance of a certain Pokemon, making them a lot easier to encounter or even encounter them on routes they aren't usually found on. When the game first released, it had a tab at the bottom of the screen which would show you an encounter with a Pokemon, with the decision to battle them or not. In later updates, the tab was removed entirely and swapped with a pop-up that appeared on the screen, showing the Pokemon's name, level, and if you already had one or not in your box. A lot more convenient in these later updates. The battle system was a very simple take on Pokemon battles, with no animations, a simple button selector to choose your attack. In all honesty, it was super basic compared to something like Pokemon Showdown that we have now, but it kept kid me happy and entertained. The thought of battling someone, a real person, and interacting online in such a way blew me away enough to overlook the simplicity of the game, lacking animations and sound effects of any kind. After battles, you could instantly heal your Pokemon by heading to the Pokemon Center with a simple button press. No need to go there in the actual map, it was its own tab which automatically healed your party. Really convenient, but meant there wasn't much difficulty to the game as potions and healing items weren't really used outside of battle. The game also had quests you could complete, which could give you special items, money, or even Pokemon if they were for events. I remember, and I think it was the last Halloween event that the game had, which the main city was decked out in Halloween decorations, and the final prize for all the quests was a Chandelure, which you could not find on the map. Lots of good memories of this game, but sadly in 2014 it was shut down. The Pokemon Company likes to shut down fan projects, but this one was clearly taking the name of a new project the company had coming up. For just a few weeks later, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were revealed to the public. And with that, Pokemon Omega ultimately goes forgotten, except for myself and a few other people online, but very little documentation even on YouTube. But I spent hours and hours, days and nights playing Pokemon Omega. Even on vacation, I would be playing it. Battles, events, swarms, trying to boost my rank and interacting with other Pokemon fans. Did you ever play Pokemon Omega? Or any other Pokemon MMOs? Let me know down below, and thank you all for watching today's video.